And here we are. Faisal, hello. Good to see you. Thank you for taking the time. Now, you've got a very nice study back there. Where are you? You know?
No, I'm in my office. I can show you around if you like. That's my office, and you can see the entrance, and those are some books in my office. And if was to put it the other way, there's actually, my neighbor has a lovely garden, and I take full advantage of my view, but it's not mine, actually. So I'm in my office.
And so how is lockdown in Lahore? What's happening on the ground?
Well, most businesses are closed. The smaller markets are being used by people, but the larger, more formal, let's say department stores and the like are all shut down. Schools are closed. Courts are having minimal activity. I haven't been to court during the lockdown yet, but my partner went yesterday, and he said that you weren't allowed in court without a mask and gloves. So they're trying to have a limited number of cases, at least in the High Court, and and less lawyers. So that's what's going on. In the lower courts, I believe everything is just getting adjourned. So cases get fixed, people show up and they ask for an adjournment, because in our lower court setup, most lawyers are in any event more interested in, pushing the case than in actually getting the case argued.
But I mean, that's a problem in any event, right? I mean, you have cases that get adjourned, relisted, etc., for all sorts of reasons from time to time. Is there? This is just making the situation worse, as it were.
At the lower court level, yes, much more so. It's just at least some high court cases are being heard, but at the lower courts, I think that just everything is being pushed along. But the problem is, generally the problem of delay is far more endemic to the lower courts, because that's a longer discussion and a debate. But essentially, in my view, at least historically, for the way in which our land regulation has been structured or defined, the problems with title are so extreme that they overwhelm the rest of the system, and even your normal commercial disputes get completely sort of swamped by the volume of litigation which is produced as a consequence of the fact that you don't actually have a system of recorded titles.
I mean, I remember years ago, now maybe 18 years ago, when I was a freshman in college, I was roped into a program called the Access to Justice Program. It was an ADB funded project. And I remember checking the notes on a very nice report, but I don't know what happened to it. These problems have been there for quite some time. Now, but what impact are you guys seeing on, commercial disputes at your end of the profession, not the lower court work, but are people sort of carrying on? Are they waiting and seeing, or are there new issues arising? What's happening on that front?
Well, I think commercial disputes generally have come to. Commercial dispute resolution process generally is just suspended. So you also have to understand that high-end commercial dispute resolution in Pakistan is actually a very odd niche. Most commercial disputes which get litigated are not sort of between private parties, but between private parties and the state. So a large amount of what I do in terms of what we call commercial litigation is litigation against the state in terms of challenging a directive, a law, or something like that. Purely private dispute resolution is actually a fairly small part, or particularly contractual dispute resolution is a very small part of normal commercial practice in Pakistan.
And you've obviously, you've acted in, I think, one of the largest investor-state disputes in arbitration, if not the largest, with the quantum of the final award against the state. Are you? And again, this is a bit of tea leaf reading, but do you think states like Pakistan are going to be more exposed now than they have been in the past with investor action, as exposed as they were before, less, or what's your view on that?
Look, there is an entire history going back hundreds of years in which our governments, our rulers have not taken the rule of law seriously, and particularly have not taken commercial rights seriously. So until recently, that was essentially only a question of domestic law. So the king did what the king wanted, and you can replace king with prime minister or whatever you want, the executive, the establishment, etc. Made no difference. So the imperial attitude remained throughout. And there's I think a visitor, some English visitor came to India in early 1600s, and there's a quote there which I wrote actually on a report for this Access to Justice project, in which he says that the king regards the merchants as so many sponges to be squeezed. So you keep on having that mentality which continues. And then what happens is that the same mentality, when you apply it to international investors, well, 20 years ago, for example, in 1998, the government of Pakistan was having a lot of problems with the independent power producers. And at that time, they, harassed them. There's a wonderful article written by Kairas Kabraji on the Hupco case, which is worth reading, talking about how individuals were picked up, lawyers were harassed, criminal cases were instituted, and they eventually resulted in some sort of a negotiated settlement. That entire picture changes with bilateral investment treaties. And when it comes to bilateral investment treaties, when they started, Pakistan was fortunate that we had Makhzoom Ali Khan as the Attorney General, and he made really good teams to fight these cases, and Pakistan won. But the mentality remains. So you still have this approach within government that when it comes to a contract, it's okay. We can just do whatever we like. We can rewrite them. We can deal with them. And that until that problem changes, you'll continue to have these types of disputes. And then this mentality got picked up and pushed up into the Supreme Court as well. Mm-hmm. So when you had Iftikhar Chaudhry, you had a number of really problematic Supreme Court decisions which dealt with, settled rights or rights under law, and sort of threw them out on the flimsiest of grounds, which would not be accepted by international arbitration tribunals. So until the lessons are learned from that experience, both by the executive and by the judiciary, you will continue to have those problems.
Right. And one of the questions that a lot of people are asking is, a lot of states, and it's not just states like Pakistan, around the world, governments are putting in place what, 3 months ago you would have called draconian measures in place. But now everyone's come around to thinking, at least for now, that they are necessary. And they're having, huge knock-on effects on people who've invested in these countries. And these investors, in due course, are going to want to see either, fair dealing or some kind of compensation. And from what you're saying, it sounds like it's going to sort of keep bubbling for now, and it's going to burst at some point.
I think you're going to continue to have problems. I mean, my advice, and I've given this to the government publicly and openly on numerous occasions, is every single government of Pakistan should try and get out of every single bilateral investment treaty possible. Because
I've heard you say that.
We don't have the official bandwidth to process the obligations that the state has under these treaties. So the thought behind a bilateral investment treaty is that if you make the penalties high enough, the state will behave. But the point is, the person who takes a particular decision does it for public acclaim, does it because the local press will say he's a hero, and the decision will be, the check will be written at some point 15, 20 years later. And Reko Dick is a great example. I mean, there is a finding on the merits by an international tribunal saying that the government of Pakistan, the government of Balochistan, deliberately decided to take over a project because they thought that the value of 114 billion placed on it by the investors was too low, and they should get more money for it. And they deliberately took it over on that basis. And I'm not talking about the valuation of the award. That's, more what it's in dispute at the announcement stage. I'm just saying
a lot of ink has been spilled on the valuation.
Yeah. And now it's 2020. So from 12 years later, and the investor is still looking to get his money, and whoever's going to pay it, you're not going to go back to who was the Chief Minister of Balochistan at that time, the Chief Secretary of Balochistan, the Secretary of Mines and Minerals, the federal government, the Secretary of Petroleum. all of the people who made that decision are long gone. Even if the Khar Chaudhry, who was then later the Chief Justice of Pakistan and gave this decision saying, oh, this is a terrible deal and it's therefore void ab initio, he is no longer the Chief Justice of Pakistan. So the connection, the assumption in a bilateral investment treaty that the state will have the institutional memory to stop making stupid decisions because there is punishment down the line doesn't work. I mean, reminds me, I remember when I was a kid, my mother would say that, dinosaurs had a nervous system so slow that by the time something stepped on their tail, they wouldn't know what it was until like 5 minutes or 10 minutes later. It's the same point. You're not going to learn what's happened to you because by the time you have to do something, it's like 20 years ago, lost in the midst of time.
Yeah. In fairness, there are a lot of states and bureaucracies like that, and certainly in the developing world, in Pakistan's sort of not on its own, but it does have its own unique and interesting problems. But one thing that I wanted to ask you about was, for a lot of the last 3 or 4 years, people have been very excited about CPEC and Belt and Road. In Pakistan, people talk about CPEC. Everyone else in the region has been talking about Belt and Road and infrastructure projects and all that. What's happening on the ground in terms of disputes relating to or arising out of CPEC type stuff, and not directly just on the intragovernmental level, but surely there's other people down the chain who've had contracts that are having some difficulty.
It hasn't, well, I don't know about the downstream disputes, but to the extent that disputes have arisen at the highest level, they've been dealt with either at an intergovernmental level or at a domestic level, but nobody's taken it international so far. We've had certain clients, Chinese clients, and we've talked to them, about the possibility of maybe doing, litigation against, under the free trade agreement, which they have. That has a dispute resolution clause, the old one did. But nobody's actually gone down that route yet, because a lot of the investment which comes into Pakistan for CPEC projects happens to be of Chinese state-owned companies, and as a cultural thing, they seem disinclined to sort of drag the matter into international court. So to the extent that there have been disputes or issues, they've been resolved politely behind closed doors. In some cases, there are, Chinese projects which have gone into litigation and arbitration, but the really big CPEC projects, to my knowledge, have not gone so till date. There have been issues, they've been dealt with, bilaterally, not through formal dispute resolution mechanisms, to my knowledge.
So moving on from this to, what you were saying about the issues on the court system, a lot of countries and a lot of judicial systems are now trying to say, well, you know what, we've been set in our ways for so long, and in a way, this is an opportunity for us to try and modernize our systems, and maybe move to virtual hearings, remote hearings, that kind of stuff. Now, I understand the Supreme Court of Pakistan, at least you can have some kind of remote hearing for counsel. But is that, well, 2 questions. Is that something that you see getting developed in Pakistan further? And secondly, would it be desirable?
Number one, it is correct that the Supreme Court of Pakistan has introduced a virtual system, in the sense that if you have a case in Islamabad, you can go to the Supreme Court registry and you stand at a podium but in front of a television monitor, and they see you on a monitor there in Islamabad. So that's a very formal virtual system, but I have used it and it has worked well, at least in my experience. Do I think that will be extended beyond that particular, the Supreme Court? I don't know. But there is a more foundational issue. You're talking about making things virtual, perhaps having matters decided on the basis of pleadings and less judicial interference. But in terms of commercial dispute resolution, we have a prior problem, which is that the judicial system and the executive first has to recognize that resolution of commercial disputes in a quick and efficient manner is a not just a good thing, but is sufficiently important that somebody should make a decent law about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have a single proper, we have this, a new arbitral institution which was set up. I don't know if they've done any cases, but the domestic arbitration law is from 1940. It's completely unworkable. Most people find it to be useless because it, whatever award you get winds up being challenged in the courts repeatedly. So you need a new domestic arbitration law. You need domestic arbitral institutions. You need a commercial bench in the High Court. And you need, if you were to take those basic steps, your commercial disputes would get resolved more easily. Then you can think about having those disputes move to a more virtual stage. But it's the prior recognition of the problem which is missing here.
And even when you get all those things, there's the other problem that technology is only as good as the person least familiar with using it, and the person with the slowest internet connection and things like this. I was talking to a friend from India, and apparently their bar counsels written to the court saying, well, it's all very good, but we've got litigants who can't access high-speed internet, and we're going to have problems. And in a way, this is a big problem for developing countries. At the same time, I think maybe if you can get the prerequisites sorted, as you say, which obviously is a big if, the lack of rigid existing institutions might well be an opportunity for people to say, well, if we're building something from scratch, we might as well make it compatible with 2020 rather than 1996. I mean, I don't know.
Well, a couple of things. One, you're completely right that if you're going to have an open access system where anybody with the requisite technology can join, then yes, there will be a problem in the sense that some people have more access to technology, some people will have less. So that's why the way the Supreme Court has gone, where they've actually, they'll set up a room in a different city where you can go and stand. So they give you the technology and the opportunity in a different city. Even that by itself is a good step forward. And if you replicate that, so for example, the Lahore High Court has, the province of Punjab has 110 million people. And you have branches in 3 other cities besides Lahore. I mean, I'm just giving you an example. So people who want to appear in the High Court will quite often travel for a day or a long time to get there, and quite often their case will be adjourned. So if you were to set up, let's say, virtual, appearance centers in smaller towns, even that would be a huge help to litigants and to lawyers for people who deal with this stuff. So it doesn't have to be a complete solution, but even alleviating part of the problem would be a great step forward.
Yeah.
And then just on a lighter note, I read an order from the Jaipur High Court recently where the judge adjourned the hearing because one of the counsels that appeared before him in a banyan, which is, in a vest, the undershirt, and, was perhaps didn't realize that he'd be appearing on video before the judge.
That's it.
So that's a separate problem. But yes, technology is a great way forward. I think for us, if we actually decide to be sensible about using technology, the most useful thing that can be done would be at the lower court level, where you should have evidence recorded through, and videotaped.
Yeah.
Because the reason why our civil system takes so long, we don't have juries, so it's before a judge. But judges are busy, so your evidence quite often takes, 7, 8, 9, 10 years to get recorded because judges are busy, you get adjourned from time to time. If you, just put up a camera and say, fine, here's somebody to run the equivalent of a deposition, ask whatever questions you want, and then the judge can decide whether it's, admissible or not, you would save a huge amount of time. We don't have court reporters either. What happens is that somebody says, there's also a language issue. So the lawyer will ask a question in, let's say, dialect, or in Urdu. The response will be in Punjabi. The the judge will then dictate it to his stenographer, possibly in Urdu, possibly in English, and it's in narrative form. It's not in question and answer form.
Yeah.
So there's this huge time gap between the person saying something, it being translated, and then quite often the judge will say, oh, is that really what you meant? So it's just a huge mess. So if you were to have a simple video recording and then you could have a transcription service, that would speed up the entire civil dispute system hugely.
Yeah.
And that's something which can be done through technology. So speech recognition into text would be very, very useful.
And do you know if there are any initiatives that are underway in Pakistan that are doing this sort?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment. Okay, I'm gonna leave you soon, Faisal. Can you just tell me a bit about Lahore? Last time I was there, I love coming to Lahore. Last time I was there, everyone was complaining about the air quality. With the lockdown, I'm guessing at least that's less of a complaint now.
That's true. We've had like the most fantastic spring. Just generally, it's been cooler and it's been a lot of rain, which we like here in Pakistan. And because of the lockdown, the air quality has been brilliant. But there is a endemic issue with the air quality, which will, I presume, arise once again after the lockdown disappears. And that needs to be dealt with because the air pollution is so high that it affects, it's a general public hazard to health. But, Lahore is a wonderful city. It's thousands of years old. It has fantastic art and culture, and it's, it's food as well. But I think what people miss out is that, Lahore has more university students than, a lot of different places. It's got something like 200,000 college students. Yeah. It's a huge number because there's so many different universities there. It's an ancient capital of culture and learning. It's been recognized for that. Anyways, I love being here and it's wonderful to be here.
Well, it's good seeing you, and hopefully we'll meet again in person, or Islamabad, or maybe one day you'll come to London.
Well, I have an arbitration hearing currently scheduled for January. Let's see if that still goes ahead.
Yeah, well, we've got these wonderful platforms now, so let's see how that pans out.